Alright guys, so I've been working on this 2006 GMC Savana and with a 4.8, and I was stumped a little bit. I couldn't get the fuel pump to turn on. So there's a couple of things that I went over before I replaced the fuel pump. Now, this is not a bad fuel pump issue, and I'll start the video by saying this. If you're having this issue where your fuel pump does not turn on, but your fuse is good, your relay is good. I actually replaced mine thinking that maybe it's something inside. Everything was good on the electrical side. Now, I checked all that, and I checked fuel pressure on crank-in, checked fuel pressure in the ignition on. Now, your fuel pump should get 12 volts for like a split second, and you can test that. So what I did, I unplugged the harness, and obviously I went in the pins and I put my multimeter into positive, which is a gray wire in this GMC, would be the right terminal. Right here, that would be the positive, the far right, and far left would be your ground. The other two would be for your fuel level. I went ahead and I tested the positive and negative, and I was getting a reading on my multimeter, which that reading turns out to not be correct. I was reading power, but the fuel pump was not turning on. So I redid my ground. I put it on the frame, and I started to get a reading. Power from the harness to the ground. I was getting good voltage through the multimeter. Test light was working. When I plugged it into the pump was not turning on. Now, I thought it was the pump. So I went ahead and replaced the pump, replaced it, and still wouldn't turn on. I replaced the pump again. I've had this happen before where I bought a brand new fuel pump and it wasn't working from factory. So I went again, returned it, warrantied it out, and I replaced it again. And still nothing. Put it up there. Messed with the multimeter. I ran a jumper wire to the harness. So I tapped into the harness with a jumper wire. I tapped into the gray wire here. And when I sent full power to it, like I said, the car itself only sends power for like a split second, just enough for the car to prime the system. When I sent full power to it, I lost ground completely. So I was stumped again. And I was like, okay, the fuel pumps are not coming on. And the ground, I lost complete ground. There was no complete circuit, so I was not getting powered at all now. Then it crossed my mind. I was like, maybe the ground, I was getting power, but I was not, when I was touching it to the ground, I was not getting any ground. So I took my multimeter and I sent the power, I tapped into the power wire, and I touched the body up top, and I was getting power again. So then I moved the ground that I did here. Like I cleaned all the grounds, and I redid that ground, and I moved it closer to me. And I moved it back to the body. Well, not back. It was not on the body. It was on the frame to begin with. But I moved it to the body. And when I moved it to the body and I plugged the fuel pump in, it turned on its own with the plug, pigtail, and everything plugged in. So that told me that I'm having a ground issue. So what I did, I took jumper cables, hooked them to the negative battery terminal, and hooked them to the ground. I moved my ground back from the body to the frame rail. And when I hooked the jumper cables to the frame rail, my fuel pump turned on again. So somewhere on this engine, so if your fuel pump does not turn on, you do have power to the fuse, you do have power to the relay, and you replace the fuel pump and you're still stumped. Try first to put a pair of jumper cables from the negative terminal to the frame, see if your fuel pump turns on. If it does, then you're having the same issue I'm experiencing right now, to where I lost the ground somewhere here. I don't know if it's from the battery straight to the engine, everything's just compact and it's hard to see, or if it's from the engine to the frame again. So what I did, I just took a battery terminal. This one has a 2-post on this van, and I ran a new ground wire. I put a 4-gauge, and I tapped it straight into the frame rail, and now everything works as it should.